You wrote in your book, building a product is like making a song, or just by reading it, I love how you say it. What do you mean by that?
Okay. You know, we've worked in organizations, you and I both know this, where someone says, you know, I was the be all end all, I did everything, right? They want to claim credit for everything. The reason for writing Build was to give credit to a lot of people along the way that, you know, I worked with, because building stuff, anything, even a book, requires a team. And when I mean team, it's like a band. Sure, there might be a band leader. Let's talk whether that's a, you know, a rock band or something like that, or a pop band, or a symphony. Sure, there might be the lead singer, or there's the, you know, the conductor or whatever. But at the end of the day, if the horn section is missing, or the violin section is out of tune, or the drum is off beat, or whatever, it all falls apart. We have to stop thinking of there's this one person who does everything and they're the genius and everyone else just follows the lead, versus a band who comes and each person brings their expertise, their experience, and their creativity, and brings the different things. And only when they're all working together in unison, and I'm not just talking technically, I'm including sales and marketing and legal and finance, when they're all working in unison and there is someone who is leading but not taking, they can't take over, because if they take over and tell everyone what to do, they'll be off beat or whatever it is. Then this beautiful thing can be created, but only when everybody's pulling and has the same mission and wants that. And so that's what I mean by it's a song, because that song has lots of different elements from different parties that didn't all come from one source, and they all have to come together in some beautiful way. And you can feel a good song from a bad song, right? And you can tell. Yeah. And the best series that I have seen on creativity now is the Beatles' Get Back. I don't know if you've seen that. The 8.5 hour, it's not a documentary, but it's really a reality thing. It was like kind of like a reality program in the 60s of how the Beatles created their album, their last album and their last concert. To me, that was utterly fascinating, because you see each person bring in their skill set, and there's still some leading going on, a little politics and everything, but you see that all coming together. And there were fights and you're like that, and there were mistakes and you see everything. It's a genius set of programs that anybody who's creating should watch, because it shows you even the masters, for when they were in their career, they made errors and they were having fun and whatever, and they came out with, and they had to work together, right? And I think that's really fascinating. And I juxtapose that with the General Magic documentary. So I don't know if you saw the General Magic documentary, but I suggest all of your students also watch the General Magic documentary, which was lots of great band members without a great song or a great conductor, which is the exact opposite of that. But it was, you know, it's a story of the iPhone 15 years too soon. And I think if you watch those two things, you can, and read Build, you're going to learn a lot about the creative process.
Yeah. So in this case, a beautiful song, a powerful band. So what role does supply chain play?
It's a
this is a personal to me, so
yes, of course. Well, yeah, and you're including manufacturing and supply chain.
Yeah,
everything. Well, look, whether I was making an iPod, an iPhone, a Nest thermostat, or even making a book, to tell you the truth, it takes all kinds of people to work on the supply chain. And when I think about the supply chain, and I think about most creation of things, it all comes down to operations and supply and manufacturing. And that means all of those experts in that field have to really understand the environmental environmental issues, right? And what I'm specifically talking about is scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions and scope 1, 2, and 3 waste, right? You need to know what your suppliers are doing. Because at the end of the day, it's all in the manufacturing, not usually in the usage. It's all in the manufacturing, the sourcing, the supply, the delivery, the reverse logistics. That's almost where all the emissions, negative carbon emissions and methane emissions and plastic waste, all that stuff is created in the supply chain. And it's incumbent that anybody who is in supply chain, I think there's got to be in their environment plus supply chain classes, so that you can really learn not just about alternative ways of doing supply chain, but also doing great ways of doing life cycle accounting, so that you understand how to account, just like you guys worry about every either time or money, right? Soon, all the emissions and waste are going to become money on the bill of materials. And you're going to have to manage that as much as any of the other parts or things on that bill of materials or the cost of goods sold. And so your discipline, your expertise is going to be more important than ever in how we're going to get past this climate crisis. And so I think about the tools that you need or you have and how they need to be upgraded to support that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you and your students all dream up and come up with solutions to bring more transparency. Remember, we had that whole, you and I were part of it, the whole worker transparency at Apple of what's going on in the work environments and with the work environments of the suppliers to the suppliers, right? And how are the workers treated? We need to do the same thing for how's nature treated by all of these suppliers as well.
We did one episode talking about the sustainability in supply chain. I think you're right. The scope 1, 2, 3, the scope 3, the entire value supply chain is almost 70% of the total corporate emission. So that is actually managed and led by all the chief supply chain officers, chief procurement officers. So we have a huge role that we could play to make this planet a better place, more sustainable.
Absolutely. And the thing that I've always run into, and I even ran into it in the book, I don't know if you saw it in the back of the book, but on the last page, you saw it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The sustainability. Oh, I can't show it. It's not coming out, but it's here. The sustainability for everything that went in, how it was processed, what to do at end of life. And I think we need to have more of that. But I will tell you that the supply chain was one of the biggest stumbles for me to try to create that sustainability information, because they were like, we've done this for 50 years. Why are you asking these questions? What's the problem? So a lot of times when people in engineering or design want to do the right things, supply chain comes back with not solutions, but saying, don't create more headaches for me. I think we have to change that.
The other way, we need more love. We've been left. If you give us more love, we will give you a solution, Tony.
Okay. Well, we were able to do some good stuff together. So I'm sure that, if you tell people, you tell those engineers and be part of the solution with them, like if they want to do alternative packaging, if they want to look at new materials or new ways of doing recycling or using recycled materials, these kinds of things. I hope that your students and the whole generation of supply chain is all like, yes, let's go find the solutions, not let's just use the old ones, right? Because that's easy.
So as a tradition of a program, I hope to build an intellectual bridge between current and future generations. Einstein said, any intellectual fool can make things bigger and more complex. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. So Tony, how would you paint a picture of supply chain by giving it a new perspective?
I think that the supply chain, at least to the employees and to the management and investors in a way, needs to become much more transparent. As soon as it becomes transparent, it's been always this thing like, oh, It's operations, just let them handle it. Nobody cared. You know, it was kind of like design in the 80s and the design in the 70s. It's just the mechanical engineering. And then design was ultimately promoted, and now it's like we see why. I think operations has to come into this, instead of being this, yeah, it's a necessary evil. It needs to be shown as, this is how we're going to actually meet our climate goals. This is how we're going to make actually more profitable products, and products that our customers want. Because if we don't do this, we're going to lose our customers, because they're going to demand this stuff. So I think the more tools to bring transparency and education about what you do and become more part of the solution for helping engineering, designers, whoever it is, to find other materials and saying, we're going to stop using this vendor because they have just like we did because they have the wrong worker policies, they have the wrong environmental policies. We're going to go here. This is the right supplier that has all these new things that we should try in our things. And yes, engineer, you're going to need to do that because it's going to affect our COGS if we don't, right? That's the kind of stuff to me where the more transparent you are and the more you have solutions and you bring, or say we're going to work together to find solutions, that's where operations and supply chain transforms. Today, it's much more, oh, here it is, you go deal with it, right? And then you just argue over price or availability. I think it needs to be, you have to understand, or the whole thing, the whole industry segment needs to understand, bring solutions, not just say no, no, no. This is kind of like the legal chapter I have in the book too, which is lawyers just say no, 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 you know, and that's usually what you see in operations and supply chain. So I'm hopeful that it'll become yes, 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 or yes, yes, and let's go find it. Yes, yes, and not no. Right.
So I have something to exchange the idea with you when I'm thinking about a supply chain. I think a lot of people probably don't understand that, but you know, since I'm talking about we need more love, you know, here you go. So everyone loves chocolate, but not everyone knows how chocolate is made. Supply chain masterminds the transformational process from planting the cacao trees to producing chocolate to finally delivering happiness to the customers. In other words, supply chain system create the magic and the wonder behind every bite of chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah, without all of that, all of those operations, and we're even feeling it today with, you know, either the Ukraine war or COVID. Think about how many times you hear now almost daily supply chain issues.
We are very, very in the spotlight these days, right? In the past few years.
In 2015, 2016, even before that, nobody cared about supply chain.
Right.
They only care about it when it's not working, right?
Yeah,
so it's amazing. This is like a perfect moment where supply chain gets there and you could say, here's supply chain that was done wrong, and here's the new way to do supply chain, right? And be a part of it. And so I think that now you're actually going to get your day in the sunshine, because you're like, oh my God, now you understand how important we are, and they're going to show you love, right? And I think that and that's the other thing is, you know, just because things are done the way they are done in traditional settings, people can get victim-like mindset. Why don't you love us more? Why don't you do? It's more of like, let me show you what we can bring to the table and the value we can bring, and show you how valuable we are, as opposed to you have to learn it. You got to, that's my point about transparency. And it's becoming more and more transparent because of the war and because of COVID and everything else. But how do you make it even more transparent and get them interested and excited by it? Just like you're interested and excited, right? How do you speak their language to get them excited, right?
I'd like to pivot to a topic. Actually, I thought you can mentor me on this particular subject.
Okay.
Let me share a quote first here from your book. If you constantly give someone flowers, after a few weeks, they won't be as nearly as special. After a few months, she will barely give them a second thought. Every week, she will steadily lose interest. So I agree with you with that sentiment. And the flower analogy made me think a lot about perspective value, right? So are you saying that less is more, kind of to maximize the perspective value? But my question here is, there are many ways to give back. So for example, give time, money, and donations, right? I've been thinking about this question in recent years because I've been contributing more, giving back. But so, Tony, what is your advice? What is a sustainable and meaningful way to give back, but still having that perspective value?
To me, it's about creating experiences. It's not about giving things or giving money, but it's about taking the time and experiencing, either having someone experience it in a unique form, or you're part of the experience with them and giving them your time through that experience. Experiences are what lasts. Facts and figures, yeah, they come and go. Emotions last. You may not remember all the details, but you can remember how you felt. So how do you create more moments of feeling, hopefully positive, that people can live with and remember and think back? You brought it up. Remember those times when we worked together. We might not remember all the facts, but remember how we felt. Remember how that culture felt, and we were so driven, and we were like, and it was hard. This was not all fun and games. This was real hard stuff. But at the end, we all looked at each other and go, my God, we did that. We went through the trial by fire and all that stuff, and we did it together. And we can look back on that in 10, 20, 30 years, even tell our kids about it. That's what it means to give back. So how do you make those experiences, right? And that can be through mentoring or teaching. That can be through creating with others. That can just be experiencing a different vacation with somebody that you never would have considered, or meeting somebody new that you never would, or going someplace that's off the beaten path that you would never consider. It's about finding those special experiences that bring emotions, because those emotions will last a lifetime.
Oh, I love the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
That will give me something to really think about after this as well. So thank you so much.
And the best emotions are when you've invested in someone or invested some time or whatever it was, and then they come back to you and they say, thank you so much. You helped me so much. It's really rewarding, right? Because that person has that emotion. They had that experience and they'll never forget it. And they're thanking you for it. To me, that's more powerful than just what you do for yourself. It's what you enable for others to experience in themselves. And that's so incredibly rewarding, right? And that's the reason for mentor, the mentor in a box build, right? Is to give back to all those mentors who helped me. And hopefully this book will bring experiences and bring people the perspective to find those experiences for themselves that really help them build who they are and whatever their dreams are.
You wrote a chapter about heroes in your book. Mm-hmm. And I, for those who hasn't got a chance to read the book, I love to read this. There is nothing in the world that feels better than helping your hero in a meaningful way and earning their trust. Watching them realize you know what you're talking about, that you can be relied on, that you are someone to remember, and then seeing how that respect evolves as you move on to the next job and next. That's the great thing about heroes. You can use their inspiration to drive you. So Tony, you are the hero for many of us who have worked for you and worked with you. So thank you so much for your leadership, your passion, your inspiration in building a better world.
Helen, thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be able to talk on this level, and I'm happy that we're talking and that you're giving back in the way you do, but that you remember the times we were together so fondly, even though they were difficult and they were tough, and we did do really important things. And that's, again, to me, you're giving me, the emotion of happiness. because, you know, you're taking that with you and giving it to your students as well about the times we spent together. So it was great. Thank you.
So what is the final thoughts or one thing that you like our audience to remember from this episode?
There is no formula to success. It's all about people. It's all about the people you work with and the mission you're on. Because if it's a mission that matters, it's doing the right thing, and you're doing with the people that you want to do it with, that you respect and they respect you, there's nothing better in this world. Even if it fails, which many things will, you just keep going on, because it's those memories you make and those connections you make that allow you, maybe in the next part of your career or later on in your career, to come back together, work together, and take all those learnings and those failures and the learnings from those failures and do something bigger and better and bolder, right? Mm-hmm. So just remember, it's about the people and the mission that you're on and how you work together, regardless of success, because those are the things you take away with it. And that's what builds you as a person.
So Tony, you are the perfect guest for this episode, actually, for a few reasons. I would love to share that with you. So first of all, I believe technology innovation can help solve many problems, including supply chain crisis. So thanks for sharing some of your vision and also help us to conclude the season 2. And then in October, we will begin a new season when I teach innovation to market at UC San Diego. On the one hand, the upper division undergraduate students in my class are the younger versions of ourselves. On the other hand, our talented students look up to you as a role model. So I have decided to give you a book as the final award for the winning teams who successfully develop startup ideas. And then season 3 will focus on entrepreneurial mindset. So I hope to invite you back to Oceanside Chat and continue the conversation about the second half of your book is about building products, building business and the teams and beyond.
I look forward to it, Helen. That would be awesome. It's so great to speak with you and take a walk down memory lane, but also talk about the future. And so thanks for having me on. I hope the audience learned a few things today, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the next generation entrepreneurs who win the Build book next year, how it inspires them and what they're working on. I'm sure I can learn a lot from them.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tony, and thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. All right, Helen.